All right, welcome back to D3 Glory Days, or welcome to D3 Glory Days, a fun announcement episode for you today. A new director of cross country and track and field has been announced at Lynchburg, and we're sitting down with Coach Mario Wilson right now. Coach Wilson, welcome to D3 and welcome to D3 Glory Days.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We're excited to chat with you and hear your vision for the Hornets over at Lynchburg. But let's get started with the main reason you're here. You're coming from a Division I program, Virginia. Some would say down to Division III. I like to say over to Division III. Take us through your thought process and why Lynchburg was the spot for you. I mean, you were at Virginia for what, 12 years or so?
13 years, yeah.
13
years, 26 total at the Division I level. But I will tell you that, Lynchburg is in close proximity to Charlottesville. It's only about an hour down the road. And, with our sport, there's levels from a Division I, II, III, in writing. But when you get to a meet, if you have good enough talent at a particular meet, they're going to be there. So over the years, I've definitely watched the effect of Jake Reed and Coach Sprecker's programs ascend. And, on occasion, Lynchburg would be, hey, can we come to the Virginia Challenge? And, I know there's guys breaking 4-minute miles there. We would go to Liberty University for a meet, and that's a local track for them. And they would be there in full force. So not only did you see them on the track, but you heard them because they always have like a good team presence. One of the things I always remarked was, that was pretty special was, the amount of non-competing student athletes or students that just followed them that were affiliated with Lynchburg, and they would line the track and just be banging on the curves as they come around on an indoor track. It's pretty hard to miss that. So, so it wasn't like Lynchburg didn't exist or you're just so in the clouds at the D1 level that you don't even know what's going on. I was very aware of all the success that Lynchburg was having over the last decade or so. And I've known Coach Sprecher for over 20 years. So those were some of the things that made this choice more logical than it may for somebody who was unfamiliar with the program.
At a personal level, what really excited you as this job opportunity became a possibility, and kind of what was that early recruiting process or conversations like for you?
Yeah. So, I think every coach, if you've been in the game long enough, you probably aspire to be, a head coach of your own program at some point. Over the years, I've definitely had some interviews, but nothing ever materialized. And, when you're at one institution for 13 years, you can grow pretty comfortable in your role. And, we had quite a bit of success, especially over the last 2 years at UVA, with winning a men's conference championship outdoors in 24 and then the women's conference championship outdoors in this past season. So, those things were definitely bucket list things, and it took a lot longer than I was expecting for us to be able to get those championships. But once you've achieved those, you feel like, yes, this is all worth it. I think anybody who coaches as a part of a team wants a team championship to be able to kind of validate the experience for the student athlete and for themselves maybe. But yeah, I got a call from an alum, and he was connected with the search. And obviously, I think with Coach Sprecher announcing his retirement earlier in maybe January or February, they probably had a plan, and maybe things went a different direction. And it went pretty quick, in terms of from the point that I was contacted to me being here right now. It didn't take more than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
2.5 weeks. And, again, convenience of proximity, I think really made a big difference. I was able to drive down and, meet people in face to face in very short notice. And, and then, when considering a job, you also have to consider your family and for from myself and my wife, she won't have to seek employment elsewhere. She can keep her job in Charlottesville, and we'll figure out who's going to commute. But it was too good of an opportunity to pass up. The first real chance of being a head coach, and then to be able to take over a program that has so much history and recent, if not continuous success at this level. And my hope is just to keep certain things going at the way they are, and in terms of dominance, but then also try to maybe bring a different perspective if I can do it.
Yeah, would love to hear maybe what that different perspective is. I mean, you mentioned recent success, 4th indoors, 7th outdoors. Their first trophy was indoors. So yeah, what's going to stay? What's going to go? Do you have a plan? I mean, it's been a quick 2-week turnaround, but do you have a game plan yet?
Yeah. A lot of my ideas come from the real change in landscape. And a lot of it is situated first and foremost at the D1 level. It's probably the most volatile of the levels right now in terms of, roster limits, the amount of money that's being pumped into institutions, with regards to, the media rights and things like that. And, I'm starting to see that, it's really more of a haves and have-nots more than ever. I got my start 26 years ago at St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania. And, it was a small school, but you had a pathway, a shot, and you felt like you could compete. I think nowadays, the pseudo mid-major type schools at the Division I level are really struggling, because there's so much money at their neighboring Power 4 schools. And that's seeping into, the other Power 4 type conferences. The ACC, is Power 4, but their funding is not nearly the same as the SEC, right? The SEC is the granddaddy, and they have big checkbooks, and the Big Ten seems to be following suit. So it just seems really unstable, almost unsustainable, and it was making me feel a little bit more uncomfortable as a coach, a veteran coach in that level. So I was looking for stability, and I was looking for an opportunity to lead, and both those things really just kind of like came together in a very short period of time. And it was like checking boxes left and right, and I couldn't believe how fast things were going. But here we are.
So we're here in the middle of summer. You're getting the chance to situate the campus a little bit, a largely empty campus, but there's probably a lot of athletes seeing the announcement who are like, okay, great, some new blood, but what kind of coach is he going to be? What kind of leader is he going to be? This may be even the first time this podcast that some athletes are introduced to you in a real way. I guess maybe how much interface have you had with athletes so far, and what's your plan for introducing yourself to the student athletes you're going to be in charge of?
Yeah, so, unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to meet directly with any of the current student athletes. I've met with some recent alums, so there's some recent graduates who've, definitely expressed excitement that I'm here. So that's nice to see. But, I'm definitely looking forward to, to obviously probably via Zoom will be the simplest way in this day and age, to get a large group, and then hopefully in a very short period of time, maybe some more individual conversations, and then individual meetings with the student athletes. So in terms of the surprise, I'm sure they're going to be as collectively surprised to hear of this naming, but I'm sure anybody who was a former athlete or is a current athlete, you just want leadership. You just want somebody, to take the reins and then, figure out what the vision's going to be. So for me, like I said before, I felt that this program was run exceptionally well. I mean, just this past year, the men finished, number 2 in Program of the Year rankings for Division III, which is just outstanding. I mean, that's absolutely, exceptional. And the majority of the staff will still be carrying on at the institution, so that's going to be a great help to me because I do have some things to learn. I do have some things to figure out. Recruiting is probably going to be a little bit different, not in terms of effort and time, but in terms of the fit. You know, I have to figure out what the fit at the University of Lynchburg is going to be, and you know, how things work. I mean, we don't have athletic scholarships at this level. Everything is need based. So having to, you know, kind of swallow your pride and say, you know, if we had more money, we could get this kid. It's like, well, it's either he can afford it or he can't. So, you know, figuring things out very quickly, but the process seems very streamlined and much simpler in a lot of respects here, because you know, once you get a kid on campus, I think, you know, even though it's empty right now, I can see when this is in full flow, when the semester starts, how beautiful of a campus, how just a magnetic and you know, highly supportive environment that this could be. And those are some of the things that I felt on my interview, you know, meeting with other head coaches who are here. Some of them have been here a long time, 30 years, you know, 20 something years. You know, I think anytime you have longevity in an athletic department like that with your peers, you know that it's a good place.
So we're coming up to cross country season here, almost a month away. You got to get ready for that. You know, you mentioned the staff. You know, you're the director. It looked like at Virginia you had jumps and multi
Yep.
for your groups. What does, you know, your staff gonna look like in terms of who's coaching what? Where will you be? And you know, we've heard from other directors like they like to go and, you know, oversee the program or take certain groups. Like, what's your plan going to be?
Yeah, so that's going to be probably the biggest thing that I'll probably eventually transition into being a true director. But right now, I consider myself a coach, right? I've been hands-on with event areas for my entire career. So to take a step back and just direct, I think is probably going to be very hard to swallow. But ultimately, I think that's probably the best role. You know, we have some young, very energetic, but coaches that they still have some experience and in particular experience at this university. So, you know, to be able to give them enough room to grow as coaches, enough room to express themselves, you know, and figure out how they want to approach their coaching careers is something that I'm going to be very, very supportive of, because you know, 26 years ago, someone had to give me a chance, and I kind of got thrown into the fire. You know, it was a small staff, and head coach took a chance on me. I was a football player in college. You know, I coached one semester as a high school track coach. And I was able to somehow convince my first mentor to take a chance on me. He did, and here we are 26 years later. You know, he was one of the first people I called when I told him I was going to finally become a head coach. And, you know, it was, you know, we were just talking about going down memory lane. But yeah, so, you know, with regards to the staff, you know, AD Waters, I call him Coach Waters. He was a coach at one point too, but he, you know, he did a lot of the legwork with regards to retaining the previous staff. Obviously, it was a very successful staff on, you know, some very successful teams. So I'm, you know, very appreciative of that, because obviously as a head coach, part of your responsibility eventually is going to be to have to hire people. And, you know, if the staff didn't exist, it would have probably been a little bit more daunting to find the right fit for this institution. But, you know, I'll be the new face. Everyone else on staff that is currently here has either coached at least for 1 year, or they're an alum of the institution as well. So you know, so because of that, you know, I'm going to give them a lot of latitude, and then have them show me the ropes with regards to things like recruiting and figuring out who the athletes that are going to need maybe a little extra encouragement, and who the ones that are going to be natural leaders, you know, of the program. I mean, you know, that's all the fun stuff.
You mentioned mentorship and kind of the value of mentorship. You've served with some legendary figures in the sport in your career to this point. What are some lessons you've learned from those figures, and what kind of mentor do you aspire to be to these young coaches in your new program?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, my most recent employment at the University of Virginia, I had an opportunity to work for 6 years with Vin Lanana, which is, I mean, you know, talk about legends of legends. He's done it all. And, so my time here was really capped off really well by a true legend. And, in terms of perspective, in terms of patience, in terms of, looking at things outside the box, that we all kind of find ourselves in from time to time. We get really passionate about maybe a particular topic, and he's usually able to, and he's been able to convey how to be, a little bit more, perceptive with regards to like what the bigger picture and things like that. So really and truly, like, the type of leader that I hope to be in terms of mentorship, with my fellow staff members, is just to allow them to be the best version of themselves and try to anticipate the potential pitfalls, the pitfalls that every coach at some point goes through, try to limit those, try to, give them guidance with regards to like, hey, you may not see that coming, but, I've experienced what you're going through. And if you're just patient about it, good things will end up happening. Trying to keep your frustration levels down. We have a large team here and, over 100 student athletes. So, I think, no matter how big your staff, it can be a little overwhelming at times, when you have a big team. But, in the meetings that I've had with the current staff, they seem to have things, really, really buttoned up, and, they've made it really easy for me so far from a transition standpoint.
Well, Coach Wilson, thanks so much for your time and sitting down with us. We really appreciate it. Welcome to Division III, and hope you have the best time at Lynchburg.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys. Take care.